Welcome back, everyone. That last session showed us what it takes to truly prove enterprise AI, security, scale, and real world performance. But once AI starts delivering on all of that, it raises bigger questions. What does this mean for test engineering? If AI can generate tests, run them, and even fix them, where does that leave the role of the test engineer? This next session takes a direct look at that shift. It questions the value we've traditionally seen from test automation and explores whether AI could fundamentally change or even replace how we approach testing. It's a bold perspective, so buckle up. Joining us is Keith Klain, Director of Quality Engineering at KPMG. Keith is an award winning leader in quality transformation with deep expertise in software testing, automation, and AI ML testing strategies. He's worked extensively across financial services and enterprise tech, helping teams scale quality in complex environments. He's also a longtime contributor to the testing community, having served as Executive Vice President of the Association for Software Testing, and is a strong advocate for building more inclusive pathways into tech. Please join me in welcoming Keith Klain.
Hi, Jenna.
Hi, Keith. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to thank the kind folks at BrowserStack for giving me the opportunity to give a talk that I've been wanting to give for a long time. So let's start with the good news. Your career as a test engineer is nearly over, but don't panic yet. That part is going to come later. But here's the most important thing to take away from this talk today. Testing isn't dead. It's not even dying. In fact, quality work is about to get a lot more important, not less. What's dying is a business model of test engineering we've been running for as long as I've been in this business and is now just collapsing under its own weight. And to be fair, this was your own fault and has been coming for a long time. So while we all sit around waiting for that email from HR entitled organizational update, let's get started. So as you heard, my name's Keith. I've been working and writing and speaking about enterprise testing and quality for over 25 years. I'm not really on social media anymore, but you can find me on my blog and LinkedIn, which is pretty much turned into social media these days anyway. So my rant today is about my experiences with the test automation industrial complex as a creator, as a buyer, and as a seller of your services. And so my central point is that we, and by we, I mean all of you, have spent decades hitting the bullseye on the wrong target. Because apparently inventing new tools is cheaper than competence. But now that bill has come due. And you're all going to have to pay for it, unfortunately. So you can feel free to boo all you want or downvote this talk, but it's time to take some medicine. So here we go. Test engineering is what is it? Is it a career? Is it a craft? In some organizations, it's a department. What really is it? Well, what it really is a failed legacy model. For 30 years, we've been told the same story. Automation will make testing faster. Automation will make testing cheaper. Automation will make testing better. 30 years of that. That's more than enough time for an industry to deliver on its promises. But after 3 decades, testing still consumes nearly 30% of IT budgets. That is just unreal. So we're either terrible at automation or automation is not the lever we thought it was. Automation is supposed to reduce effort, not create new tax brackets for failed developers. But despite all the test automation that we've built, quality hasn't dramatically improved. Costs didn't drop dramatically. In fact, the only thing that's changed dramatically was all the complexity that you've added to the world through these flaky shadow systems. Because apparently the only solution coming from the test engineering world to our quality problem was, look like we need another automation framework. specializing in writing automation frameworks today is like it's like being a professional horse diaper installer in 1910. You're particularly unskilled. You're just on the wrong side of a timeline, and in that analogy, probably the horse. So how did we get here? We got here because maintenance was what was maintenance? Maintenance was the entire business plan. Think about this. Your own industry reports say that between 40 and 70% of testing effort goes into maintenance. Maintenance. Fixing your flaky scripts, repairing test environments, stabilizing your brittle pipelines. You know what that does? That turns your testing organization from the most important source of executive decision support into an army of graveyard groundskeepers. And that's because maintenance is the only part of testing that most test managers understand. Here's your legacy, right? Millions of tests, half of them flaky, a quarter of them irrelevant, and everyone's too afraid to delete them because no one gets promoted for deleting a test. But that legacy isn't because you're not smart. It's because you've been conned by cynical tool vendors who equate more tests with testing because they've never had to live with the consequences of their decisions, which is primarily because test automation ROI is so what is it, right? Is it hard to measure? Is it easy to measure? Is it quantifiable? Is it qualifiable? Is it ultimately the story you make up right before budget season? No, test automation ROI is snake oil, right? The test industry is obsessed with metrics that look impressive but mean nothing, right? Percent automated, number of test cases, test coverage. They sound scientific, but research and the reality we all know is a lot more uncomfortable. Percent automated is a labor metric. It's not a quality metric. It tells you how much of your testing you converted into scripts. It doesn't tell you if you're mitigating any risks. Automation coverage barely correlates to test effectiveness. You can have 95% coverage and still ship garbage. And to the shock and surprise of absolutely no one, pass-fail ratios are still the most often reported metric and foundational to every report on automation. The entire test reporting process has become a management kabuki dance optimized for counting things, not risk management. And yet we continue to report them like they mean something. You know why? Because complexity is self-justifying. And the result is the test automation we see today that costs more and delivers less because it's not tuned for reporting, not risk. But that's going to get a lot worse for you all because test automation is it hard? Is it expensive? Is it a specialization? Well, these days test automation is easy. Automation is getting easy, and it's getting easier every day. Not a little easier, radically easier. We're living in a world now where AI can generate your test framework, generate test data, generate test scripts, execute tests, regenerate and fix broken tests. Soon, maybe even after this talk, your management is going to look at your big, beautiful, undocumented, unobservable spaghetti code test framework and think, well, that was cute. Can we rewrite it this afternoon? And your good friends in the test tool business will be holding the knife that's in your back, right? All this means the hard part that justified your role in the first place is becoming commoditized. Your profession is becoming a button. So what happens to the job of a test engineer in that world? Well, if your entire identity is wrapped around writing automated tests, then you're about to get underbid by a tool that works weekends, right? And it doesn't just work weekends, it works all the time, just like my anxiety, right? But that's not going to matter anymore because test engineers don't know. What don't they know? Are you ready for this? This is going to sting a little bit, right? Test engineers don't know how to test. That's right. I said it. Test engineers don't know how to test. Decades of everyone has to automate has trained an entire generation to work in an industry that they don't understand. And then the agilistas turned goal displacement into high art by cynically preaching that a subtask was more important than the actual objective. Then vendors took all your junior developer imposter syndrome insecurities, matched it with their BS methodologies, and merged that with management mistrust and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar script jockey business that they'll replace you with a tester bot in a heartbeat. In fact, they're actively working on solving that problem right now. Test and quality engineering is applied systems thinking. It's not Selenium, it's not Cypress, it's not Playwright, or whatever your latest tool fetish is. I've met, interviewed, and hired more test engineers than I ever thought possible, and they are not students of testing. They don't study their craft because they're fixated on short-term dopamine hits in the form of green checks. This industry has spent 2 decades wrestling with the Jurassic Park principle, knowing that we shouldn't build half of this stuff, but we didn't have the courage of our convictions to not take the money. Well, all that's over now, as none of that's going to work with AI-enabled systems where expected behavior or expected results are in a probability distribution. But again, don't worry about that. You're not going to have to because test engineers are the new, what are they? This is a little brutal, but it's true. Test engineers are the new travel agents. So I was trying to think of a useful analogy, and travel agents seem to be the most relevant. Travel agents used to be essential. You couldn't book a flight without them. Airlines were super complex. Reservation systems were very tightly controlled around access. And travel agencies monetized all that complexity. Then the internet happened, and suddenly anyone could book a flight. That transaction became automated, and the role just practically vanished. The travel didn't disappear, but the intermediary lost its entire function, right? So guess what? Test engineering is heading towards that same transformation. AI in automation is removing all the transactional parts of testing, script creation, test execution, maintenance. So that means all that work that defined the role of test engineering is going bye-bye, which means you all are the new travel agents. But wait, there's still more good news. The good news is nobody cares, and you shouldn't either. Nobody cares about your automation framework. They care about risk. They care about financial exposure. They care about customer impact. They care about regulatory oversight. This industry has built massive auto testing defect predictinators that produce millions of artifacts, but can't answer the question, what will happen if things go wrong? And if your test approach can't answer that question either, you're doing it wrong too. And that's the hard truth. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your ever expanding regression pack. No one cares about your test case counts. Nobody cares about your automation percentages, or your coverage charts that look like big, beautiful mountain ranges. The reality is that the test script production business is oversupplied, which means the economic value of writing tests is about to collapse to zero. And you can't compete with free. Free is undefeated in the marketplace. But that's what happens when an industry bases their entire strategy on trying to count to an infinity and beyond. So thank you and good luck. You're going to need it.
Thank you, Keith. That was really powerful and thought provoking. You've given us a lot to think about. So let's take that forward. If test engineering is evolving this rapidly, how do QA teams adapt? That's exactly what we'll dive into next. Stay with us as we continue the conversation.